Hello, filmmakers, and welcome to the Wedding Film School Show, a podcast dedicated to the craft, business, and personal aspect of running a wedding film brand. The Wedding Film School Show is hosted by myself, Jared Haskell, and my longtime business partner, Jason McCutcheon. If you're looking for free resources or to get your wedding film business off the ground, make sure to check out weddingfilm.school or check us out on Instagram for news, giveaways, and more. Anyways, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. Clearly, Jason and myself are nerds, so if you're a nerd yourself, you're in the right place. We're going to be talking about an aspect of wedding filmmaking that I think a lot of wedding filmmakers maybe try to avoid at all costs, at least when they first get started. There's nothing that excites a person about the sales process, right? Most of us don't get into wedding filmmaking to talk about sales.
I definitely think that is not why people get into the industry for sure. I do think it's like maybe not 50-50, but there are a lot of people who love sales and love doing sales. And there's also a lot of people who hate sales, but I think within both of those camps, there are people who love it but actually suck at it, and who hate it and are actually good at it. And I think ultimately it really comes down to, do you want to be good at it, right? And so that's like what we're kind of talking about. I don't mind saying this, Jared. We're good at it. We're good at sales. We're good at making wedding films. We're better at selling them. And so I think like at the end of the day, like it's why I'm like so prickly when I hear alleged sales experts in the wedding industry who are telling you to sell 10 things. I'm like, so a person who can sell 10 of a product is a sales expert? You don't need to be good at sales at all to sell 10 of anything. You just got to get in front of the right person. And I think that's usually the message, by the way, is like, get your ideal client and then you won't have to be good at sales. So that is true. And a lot of people will be okay. So keep in mind with whatever we say today, that if you suck at sales, you can still do okay in the wedding industry. But if you're better at it, you would do better.
Yeah, I think we can end there. If you're better, you're better.
That's it. And it's like, we're not telling you what you have to be or do or whatever. Right. And like a lot of approaches work, but a lot of people who are teaching sales right now are actually teaching marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing is not sales. Sales is about what you do after marketing happens.
Right.
When someone fills out that form, sales is the process after a person connects with you.
Right.
And a lot of people are really good at marketing, and that's what most of the industry is teaching. Like, shoot, let's get paid more. That's marketing. Mm-hmm. It's all marketing. Sales is how to get a person to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah.
I think we are decent at marketing. We are great at sales.
Mm-hmm. I would totally agree. So I think today what we're going to be talking about is kind of how we do things. Kind of as an introduction, Jay mentioned that, we're pretty good at sales. I mean, if this is your first time listening and don't know about the businesses that we run 3 different businesses in 3 different parts of the market. One is a very accessible brand starting at $2,000. We go all the way up to $3,500. That's kind of like entry level for us here in New England. Maybe people in some parts of the country think that's high, but here in New England, that's pretty much just, entering the market. We also have another brand that starts at $5,000, goes up to really probably can go up to like $15,000. And then we have our ultra kind of luxury brand. We start at $12,000, go up to whatever people want to spend. And so, we have these funnels that work, and they're all different for different parts of the market. But I think what we're going to talk about today is kind of the common thread between all of them and kind of what we do for all 3 brands. And so I think it applies to really anyone's business out there. Can probably have some big takeaways from today's episode. So, I think sales is hard.
Hey guys, Bobby popping in quick to let you know that this episode of the podcast was brought to you by Tamron. Providing filmmakers with the perfect mix of performance and value, Tamron has every type of lens to fit your needs. With their moisture-resistant construction, close focusing abilities, 6-year warranty, and remarkable optical performance, Tamron lenses can help you upgrade your wedding films. I know I personally keep the 28 to 75 2.8 in my bag, and I often reach for it on a wedding day. So send them some love for making this episode possible. Check out some of their lens options in our gear link below or at www.tamron-americas.com.
Definitely not sexy.
Yeah, definitely not sexy. Getting on the phone with somebody is difficult for most people. I feel very lucky because I worked in a call center in 2006, and I hated every second of it. But I realize now it really taught me a lot of fundamental just skills of how to interact and relate with people in a way that I think a lot of people don't, have that kind of baseline comfortability of being on the phone. I think if you have a background in sales, you automatically are going to have some sort of, advantage over people. But I think the key for people that aren't comfortable with it is learn how to get comfortable with it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I remember that book we had read years ago called Ultimate Sales Machine. And they talk about the traits of a good salesperson, and I remember it stuck with me so much because as a person who's maybe not typically a person who would be considered great at sales, I'm okay at sales actually. And I was like, why am I good at sales, but I'm not great at small talk? And it's the traits of what makes you good at sales are not necessarily, I think a lot of people think oh, this person's good at sales. So they're really amiable. They're really nice and everyone likes them. That person might suck at sales.
Mm-hmm.
You could be, or, oh, that guy's such an a-hole. He's such a jerk. It's why is that guy maybe the highest selling guy at a car dealership?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's oh, we're not car dealers. We're wedding filmmakers. You're much closer to a car dealer than you realize. Sorry. You're selling a super expensive product that a person doesn't need.
Or at least could afford at a far lower price.
That's what I mean. They could go buy a much cheaper thing. They could, and you're trying to convince them to get into the top model with all the extra features where the margin is, right? That's what a wedding filmmaker is doing. You're trying to make someone buy something that they otherwise don't want most of the time. They might kind of want it or need it, but they don't maybe want what you want to sell them. And so I remember this book saying, it's called The Ultimate Sales Machine. It's an old school sales book, by Chet Holmes. That's OG, 1990s, maybe 80s kind of the thing. But there's a lot of wisdom in it still. And they say a great salesperson is very high empathy and also very high tenacity. They don't take no for an answer. And I think that really kind of drove home to me, a lot of our approach to sales is good listening, caring about people, being approachable, but also the ability to be a little bit dominant and drive the conversation the way that you want it, get a person to know what you want them to know. And also you're not overly personal. I think a lot of people, you mentioned it in the pre-show prep, when I say high empathy, what do you think a lot of people, what kind of person do you think they're thinking of in terms of a sales setting?
Someone who feels other people's pain and is just going to be a yes person, maybe?
Yeah, a really, I think, weak person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think empathy is weak, but you know what I mean? I think that's an image in the mind. It's this very soft person, But really, empathy just means the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, which I think it's mainly understand. And you understand them. So what their pain point is. This customer really loves X about wedding films, or their budget's very sensitive to them, or something about what they're saying to you. You're grabbing onto it. You have to be able to listen to people, read between the lines, read everything that they say as meaningful, and there's no throwaway interactions in sales. And so that empathy is important. But also, how many times, Jared, have you had to follow up with someone this is a bad way I'm forming this question because actually I know it's all the time. Let me say it this way. How many times have you had to not follow up with a person more than once before they signed on the dotted line in the last year that you can remember?
With
the exception, even wedding planners.
I mean, I feel like most people, Like it's hard to put a number to, but I probably could.
Most people you send them they get the confirmation email on the form and they just buy it. No.
I say most people require follow up.
Oh yeah.
Most people require follow up. I need to after I get on a call with them, there's a follow up email, and then most people will look at it, but then need a reminder to hey, let's get this thing done. After that, it starts falling into place. But I would say most.
Yeah, I would say most, and like I think our data is really good, guys, because we have so many leads and so many weddings we're booking. So like we don't say this stuff because it's like, you schmuck, you don't have as many leads as us, but mainly like, and your numbers might vary differently slightly, but in general, like I believe it takes us like an average of like 30 days to close a lead. I'm actually trying to pull the number up now, but it's not.
And that's not a great close rate.
Well, it's okay. Our close rate is like 15, 20%.
I could be a lot more diligent on those people, but I generally think we have we respond to people a lot, but I still say it's pretty low leverage sales, low pressure sales.
I would say you would be shocked at how much lower pressure everyone else is.
Sure.
And I think like,
well, that's my point in saying that is like, just because you follow up, that doesn't mean it's high pressure sales.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're not really tightening the screws on people by just reminding them that you exist and that you're waiting on them.
You're only being annoying if the people that you are doing something for don't want you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But most people who are interested in your wedding film company,
and at that point, it's
want you to follow up with them. That's why they reached out.
At that point, if they're getting annoyed with you, then you don't care because they're not going to be your client. So it's like, I think most people, it's 2024, guys. Like, what percentage of brides and grooms do you think are planning their wedding from work in 2024? Mm-hmm. It's a super high number. Most people that I talk to on the phone, because I do call sales, which might be different than the way other people do sales, but I get on the phone call with people. Most people that I talk to, I would say even as high as like 95% of people I talk to have a job, bride or groom, and they are at work when I'm talking to them.
Oh, how many? That's like
Lunch
every phone
break,
call we have.
Coming home from work. They work from home, but they're able to get on the phone with me.
How many Zooms have you done with a nurse in her scrubs?
A lot.
A lot.
People that we are working for are workers. And now a lot of times they're pretty like white collar work.
Well, but they're busy. That means their job is important to them.
Yeah. So the fact that they haven't gotten back to you, it's not like they are. I think there's this common like misconception about people. I think that's like, they're ghosting me. They're being like mean or something.
They don't value me.
They don't value me. They're not thinking about me every waking minute of the day. It's like actually super conceited and weird that people think that to me. Like, because I'm just like, no, they're just like at work or like with their kid or like walking their dog or their parents came over. Like, life, guys. Like, geez, give people a break. And all they need is that, hey, just wanted to follow up. What's going on? And meeting people where they're at, that's a part of, I think, being empathetic to what people are going through is just meeting people where they're at. So, for us, a lot of times that's email responses. I know, and we're actually diving into it, and we should have been doing this years ago, probably. Text responses. That's another way to just meet people where they're at, because someone might be out for a jog. They're not on their email, but they can get a text and be like, hey, Jared, sorry I haven't responded. We're interested in moving forward. Just waiting to hear from my parents. That's all they need to send. Yeah, okay, great. How long do you guys need? How long do you want me to hold it for? You just start the conversation. Again, meet people where they're at, I think is a big, tenet of the whole,
do what they want. Like, is really what it comes down to at the end of the day. But I think from a conceptual standpoint, it's believe in what you're selling. Believe that even if you're not the best, I think have some like cockiness that this is good. This person, if you don't believe that what you're selling is good at a good value, like you're not going to be able to have the confidence. And people like read that as, people don't know this, but like there's a reason why cocky people are everywhere in society. And partially because a lot of them actually are good. But I think the other thing is like when you're talking to someone who's insecure, like a salesperson, like if I was with a salesperson who is like, I don't know, man, that car's not that good, I'd be like, I'm not buying it then.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like how some people kind of come across. So you got to have that confidence. You got to have that.
Or even as simple as like, why should I buy this car? And they're like,
just
that
blink.
That kind of tells me
You
what
can't
you
blink.
need to know. Like, well, this is the best car that's ever been invented. It's a Ford Focus.
The worst thing is that, like for me, I get in a car and back to meet people where you're at, right? I've bought a lot of cars. I'm the worst person. You do not want to sell me a car. Because I'm like brutal. Like I get in the car and I'm like something. I remember back when CarPlay was a big thing, and I like music, right? So I know the audio quality on a USB is better than on Bluetooth. But the other thing is Bluetooth annoys me, has a lot of issues. I prefer CarPlay. I prefer the maps. I like when I can click on the thing and be like, take me here, and it shows up, all the good stuff. So I'd be like, something about CarPlay. And the person will be driving. This was back in the day when it was less on every car. And they'd be like, but you don't need that. Like, we have Bluetooth. It's better. It's wireless. And I'm like, actually, it's not better for me.
Yeah.
And the fact that they fix their mouth to say that, I will never buy a car from them. Because I literally told you what would make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
I gave you the cheat code to make me a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And you're so dumb and such a terrible salesperson that I told you what I wanted, and your response to me is, you don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, so stupid. Now, I don't think a lot of wedding people are doing this, by the way. I think most wedding people would not do that to someone because we're not car salesmen. But I do think at the end of the day, like, that's an extreme example of like customers are telling you how they want to be treated. Like if they say, oh, texting is better for me, or they keep calling you. Like you could say, oh, it's a violation, and maybe you don't do it. Maybe you refuse to engage with it. But at the end of the day too, like you are choosing not to get that booking.
You're choosing to give it to someone else who's
You're
willing
choosing
to do those things.
You're choosing to do that. And like you can choose that. And like I don't have a big judgment on that because you can choose anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when it comes to being a good salesperson, the qualities of like that tenacity, that empathy, that listening, all kind of come into the most important thing I think with sales is the execution, right? All those character traits, if you don't have execution and you don't have a plan, it all's worthless. And so I think we should talk a little bit about how we like to do sales and just how often we make, like how many touch points we're having with our customers or potential customers, and kind of like that approach. We don't have to do all of it, but a little bit of that. And then like maybe some things that people can maybe implement in their own sales process.
Sure. Yeah. I think sales for us, I don't know if it starts with the website, but let's just start with the website.
I think it starts. That's okay. They fill out a form.
Right. So they fill out a form, but on our website itself, right, there's a lot of information on there. I almost want people to be super informed. So when they talk to me, I'm kind of just repeating myself a second time if they, went through our website. Repeating talking points. I think it helps people just remember hearing it a second time from a person, be like, oh yeah, you guys are the ones that do raw footage or whatever it is. So we put a lot of information on the site. We do not put our pricing on the site anymore for certain reasons, which I won't dive into on this podcast because we're not going to talk about it. People fill out a form on our website. They're already fairly informed. We automatically send out an email to them.
Okay, before we move on, because I love that point.
Yep.
I think that is a really critical thing. Identifying what a person knows when they're starting the call.
Yes.
What do they know about you already?
Mm-hmm.
That is where your marketing is supposed to set up your sales. It's not just supposed to get you eyes.
Yeah.
So like say you market a bunch of crap, but the actual thing you want to sell has nothing to do with it. Like it's not that good. Like it's why like if you shoot a wedding and the bride has cancer and she gets rolled down the aisle and it's this emotional thing and you get 10 million views. That's awesome and it's a beautiful story. It might not sell you any weddings because that product isn't really actually, it doesn't inform the client what it is that they need to know about you to start that sales call. And I think like it's why like, okay, is your pricing there? How are your packages structured? You know, are you posting all the time on social? Like all of that is giving me the ability to know like this person has probably seen these videos. This is their impression of my work. This is what they know about my packages. You could say something on the phone with that person like, so did you have a chance to look at our packages? Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
You can skip a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
You get right into it. But anyway, I think that's a great point and like something that I think you're going into the call with without even thinking, but it is really important part of your sales process, which is you have a good idea of what that person knows about you already as a base of knowledge to start that conversation.
It's the pre-sales process.
Yes.
Right. You're warming people up to you and who you are. Yeah. So they fill out the form. We automatically send out an email, which I think most people probably do in 2024. If you're not doing that, you should do that. Our automatic email just says, hey, we hear you. We saw you. Your form went through, essentially. We don't say that, but it's a response, right?
It's a confirmation.
Yeah.
Like you need that confirmation.
Confirmation. It says, follow us on Instagram. It says, check out our recent work on Vimeo. Here's some of our recent work. We'll be in touch very shortly. Now, on the back end, so that's an automation.
How quickly is that email going out?
Within a minute.
Yeah.
Within a minute.
I think that's the expectation, by the way. If someone fills a form out, that they immediately get confirmation. If
Yep.
you don't have a confirmation email going out, you're nuts. Get a confirmation email.
Yep. Touch point, right after that. At that point, Samantha will respond. So this is manual labor. Responds to the person. Hey, thanks for reaching out. We love your venue. We love, acknowledge some of the things in their initial inquiry. We love this photographer, whoever they say referred us. Sets up a phone call. Would you have time this week to chat? We're available. Boom, 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 boom. So we pretty quickly want to get people on the phone who are hot leads. I want to sell them. I want, we're again kind of warming them up to me, who's like the salesperson, right? Want to get them on as fast as possible. And generally, in the past, I've been a little bit more like, let's set up a call on Friday. Now I'm telling Sammy, set me up. If it has to be today, tomorrow, set me up as fast as possible. As long as I know about it and I'm not on the golf course or something, set me up. Set me up as quickly as possible. If it's Friday morning they reach out, try to catch up that day. Don't give them the whole weekend to think about it while we're shooting weddings. I want to talk to them as soon as possible. So she sends out that email pretty quickly. At that point, what happens to most people, right? They get ghosted. So
well, let's define ghosting, because
Sure.
I think other people might. The way I see ghosting, used a lot of frequently, is I sent one email and the person did not respond.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm like, what was the email? They didn't respond to your confirmation email.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ghosting.
Right.
And sometimes I'm like, well, when did you send it? 2 days ago? 2 days ago? To me, ghosting is, I don't really believe in ghosting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone owes me an explanation why they don't want to work with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because I do not live by that standard myself.
Yep.
If I don't want to work with you, I'm not talking to you.
Right.
So I think to me, I don't even think ghosting, but I do think if, what most people mean is multiple contacts are being ignored,
Mm-hmm.
Which is something you should learn from. That
Sure.
definitely has a meaningful interaction if you send 3 emails and the person ignores you.
Yep.
But in general, I think most people are just determined. They label a ghost way too quick.
Sure. So one email goes out for us. 3 days after, second email goes up. Just a reminder, hey, we still want to chat. Third email.
Is that regardless of how they respond to Sammy, or only if they don't respond?
Only if they don't respond.
So how
it's
important?
automated.
Yeah. So
All
how
of it's
important is
automated.
it to you to have customized sales funnel depending on how the customer is reacting.
If someone hasn't responded to me, they don't deserve the respect of a custom email from me.
I don't even mean custom. Like, I don't mean like that. I mean like you have a divergent path in your sales process depending on how someone's acting.
So right.
Should everyone be doing that, or should people just have?
I think so. I mean, I think they should be doing it exactly the way that we're doing it. You have automated emails that go out. Like as soon as they reach out, they're automatically added as an automated email. And if they don't respond, they just go through that entire sequence. Initial email, they're getting email after 3 days, after 7 days, after 14 days. And it's really like, hey, just following up. Hey, just following up again. I know things can be crazy. We just don't want to bother you anymore. And then the final one is like, hey, hope you guys have a great wedding. Good luck on your day.
Okay.
Bye.
So with these emails that are like kind of, hello, are you still there?
Yep.
Kind of these check-in emails. What would you say would be the wrong tone?
Making people feel badly for not responding to an email. Just like, hey, I'm responding to you here. Like, I would just, having empathy would be understanding that people are pretty busy and they probably just haven't checked their email or things have come up. I think if someone ignores your email 4 emails in a row, they're just not interested and they're not going to respond to you. Hey, we found someone else or whatever. And sometimes you get those, but generally maybe they're just reaching out to get pricing from you. And then when they found out the pricing, they're not interested.
Aiden reaching out from
yeah,
pretending
exactly.
to be a client.
Yeah, exactly. I would say, you have to find the wording that's right. Cause I think like our third email there is a little bit pushy. Like we're like, hey, I wanted to follow up one final time to see if you're interested in our services for your wedding day. We still love to be a part. However, we know that there's a lot of factors that go into make a huge decision like this. If you could let us know if you're still interested or if you've gone another direction, that would help us out and keep us from bugging you,
Here's what I like about our emails. Every one of them assumes the best intentions of the list of the potential customer.
Yeah.
Even if you think that person's a jerk.
Right.
Like, I think it's important that people, if you really, to do this right, you have to be super persistent, but back to that empathy.
Yep.
It has to be like, I know you're busy. I know there are a lot of options out there. I know, like, giving them every out to not be morally repugnant for not responding to you.
Right.
I think if your email is like, I have other people who want to book me. Do you want to book us?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. Or like, if there's any tone or feeling in your email that at all says, I am busy and I want to deal with this, it's probably not the right messaging.
Yeah.
And I think, I guess I can't assume. I have seen some emails where people post like, they'll be like, this person reached out to me and this is what I said. What do you think? And every time I think it's bad, it's always for that one reason. It's like, that person knows you're mad. That you can't let them see you sweat, guys.
Yeah.
Like nobody can think like this person is mad at me for not calling them.
Right. And I will say we get a lot of responses after email 3.
After email 3.
Because I think saying we're not going to email you anymore.
That's as hard as we go.
Like I've sent you a couple emails, you've ignored them. I don't want to bug you anymore. Just let me know if you've gone another way. Totally fine. We just don't want to bug you anymore. This is the final. It's something about like, this is the last time I'm reaching out to you, but I'm not going to bug you anymore. A lot of people are like, oh, so sorry. Work has just been crazy. That is the email. It might as well be a template.
Yeah, they have their template.
Yeah, they have their own template.
It's sorry, work has been crazy. That's an automated email.
That's it. And so fairly efficient. No, it doesn't work for everyone, clearly, but it works fairly well. And so that's kind of like we call it like our inquiry response workflow. As soon as someone responds in any way to any of these emails, they get taken off that automation immediately. So they're not always going to get hit with 4 emails. Hopefully it's just the one, like, hey, and it's within an hour or two, especially if we responded within an hour or two, they'll respond, hey, let's set up a time for Friday at whatever time.
Before we move on, because I wanted to ask you this, how soon is too soon, or how long is too long to time out these pre-response emails?
Like, how far apart should they be?
Yeah, do you have an opinion on that?
No. I think ours is perfect. But I wouldn't really have a problem if someone said, hey, I send out an email, and if they don't respond, I send an email the second day. I wouldn't say that's a problem. I would say that's being probably pretty aggressive and tenacious, which, maybe a little bit desperate. It's not really our style.
You don't want to look desperate. I think to me, like, right away, do an email right away, something. I think 3 days would probably be the soonest I would want to follow up.
Yeah.
3 days, but you could do 5 days.
Yep.
But I think 3 days.
3 days and then a week. Hopefully you're hitting people, they reached out on Monday at 3 p.m.
I think the increments
that probably means that they're open Monday at 3 p.m. So if you hit them a week later at that same time, maybe they'll be available at that same time, or they're seeing that email. So 3 days, 7 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
is
I think
pretty spaced out.
That last email can be like, I think you want to have like the longer increments the farther down the chain you go.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Like you don't want to do 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. It's like
Right.
3 days, 5 days, 7 days. I think like max I would do is 4.
Yeah.
I think 3 is perfect.
Yep.
I think honestly, I think anything less than 3 is too little. But I think at least 3. I don't think more than 4.
Sure.
Attempts to get a person. This is before you even get on the call. So
Yep.
back to what we're doing. The person responds, "Oh yeah, let's hop on the phone."
Yep. Phone call or Zoom. I do prefer Zoom. It's just usually I'm driving around.
When you're as beautiful as you are.
Yeah. Usually I'm driving around though, so it's harder to do Zooms. But I think there's definitely a competitive advantage to doing Zooms. I would highly recommend it. People like people, and they like seeing their faces and trusting the person that they're looking at. So I would say Zoom is probably gives you a little bit better close rate. And I would recommend it to anyone. So get on a call with someone. Sammy sets me up. She's my, Stockton, and I'm Carl Malone, and I hopefully will dunk it home. But get on with people. Usually my sales call is about 30 minutes long. Keep it pretty simple, understanding that, people are busy. They're usually at work. I don't want to take a full hour out of their workday. Half an hour is usually, I think, understandable for most people. After that initial phone call or Zoom meeting, we are sending them just starting a new automation for them. It is our meeting follow-up email. And we do a couple different services. Actually, altogether, I have 20 different automation cycles. So in each of these 20 automations, there's probably 3 to 5 emails in each of them. So there's a ton of automations that we've actually created.
In the automation world, it's like if this, then this.
Yes.
It's if this, like, and you can create it like however you want. Like you can, and this is HoneyBook we're using. I mean, I do think we're kind of glossing over the fact that we're using a CRM.
Yeah.
You should use a CRM. If you want to use HoneyBook, you should, but there's a lot of good ones. I don't think it matters that much which one you use, but just make sure they have some level. To be honest, I wish HoneyBook had better automations. They've gotten better, but at the end of the day, it's good enough.
Me too. Because we have a bunch of services. Like we do photography, we do video, we have a photo booth. We have a lot of different packages. So, I wish the automations were a little bit more precise and they could change according to what package they chose or something. It just makes sense to me, but they don't. So, but it's okay because we worked around it. So immediately after the call, they get added to another automation, meeting follow-up, right? That is going to be, I'll just dive in and look at it. Immediate response. Usually I want that to be the same day. So they can look at it at night with their partner. They can work with their parents over the weekend. So we send out an initial email. 3 days later, again, they receive another email. Hey, just following up, wanted to see if you had looked over the things that we had sent you. because that person's really hot at that point. Like you want to close that person as soon as you possibly can. 7 days after, and then 14 days. So it's let's see. So actually, we have 7 days, then 14 days. Yeah, this last one is just I do have a task after 15 days to archive the project. If they don't respond to me 2 weeks after,
which we don't do.
Well, so yeah, we don't do. Essentially, what I do is it is right of first refusal for 2 weeks.
Not legally.
Not legally, of course, but just as a courtesy to people, we do a right of first refusal. I tell people if anyone else just reaches out about their date, we'll ping them.
Oh, so I have these numbers, by the way, Jared, on time to book.
Okay.
If you want them.
Okay.
So I would think our average time to book right now is like 22 days.
Okay.
That's from the beginning of they filling out the lead to all the things that goes into it to signing the contract.
Yeah. Usually takes a week to get people on the phone. I would like it as fast as possible, but most people are like, oh, let's meet 5 days from now. Like that gives them a little bit of time to go through our stuff or something like that. So at least 5 days on average is probably inquiry to phone call.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think people just they lack a lot of patience.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to this. But so you're saying.
And this is the thing too, guys, is like people want a book. They want this to be done. They don't like it being open-ended unless you're an absolute terrible decision maker, which plenty of people out there are.
Yeah, every once in a while there's tire kickers, but in general.
But dude, most people just want to be done with it, dude. Like I always tell people like, you want to be done with this because like you want to get back to your actual like
life
engagement. Like being engaged is really cool. You can go out and have dinner with your friends and like show off your ring and be like, oh, we're engaged to be married. Like that's such a new experience. It's super exciting
time in life.
Yeah. And the last thing, honestly, people want to be doing is planning a wedding and the stresses that, surround that. So, so that's what our follow-up looks like. Just boom, 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 boom. Those are all going out automatically. Again, just like our like immediate response email, that's going out. If anyone responds at any point, they're booted off of that list and we're just manually responding. Because usually that's going to be like questions about packages, questions about the contract, all these kind of things that you're going to have to manually write out anyways. So that's kind of what our meeting follow-up looks like. Anything you want to add?
No. I mean, the one thing I would say is like, you don't have to do it the way that we do it, like all those exact things. I think what we're trying to say is like, it kind of doesn't matter what we do specifically. And like, I don't like teaching people like, this is what I do and I'm going to give you the method. I don't think you should run your business like that either. What we're saying is, hopefully what you're hearing is, wow, they have a lot of things that they do to sell.
Yeah.
And they take it very seriously. And we don't believe for 2 seconds that our films are good enough, or anyone's films pretty much, to endure a terrible sales structure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think, because like one of the things I think people are learning about in sales is, what is it like to work with you?
Yeah.
When they're going through that sales process. And I think one of the things that people like about you, Jared, and also is a truism, is when you go through our sales process, and I think a lot of people do this pretty well, to be honest, in our industry, and this is maybe a strength of the wedding industry, is the whole like experience of getting to know that person via sales helps a person make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I like that person's vibe.
Yep.
Right. So I think as long as you're structured and you have an approach that works and it makes sense and it's consistent, and I think like, don't be a coward. Don't be like afraid to talk to people. Like, make sure you're being diligent and empathetic and listening, but also like, as long as you're be yourself in a really consistent way, I think that's what we're saying.
Right. And here's the reality, and I'm not naive enough to not understand this. Most wedding filmmakers are part-time, right? They have a job Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 potentially, let's just say. And most filmmakers that are part-time, I feel like aren't doing a lot of this. Like we are a full-time studio. Like we have staff, it's 8 of us. And we're doing these things. And you as a part-time person can be matching us very easily because you're just doing automations. You're setting it up so you're responding even when you're working, doing something else.
Yeah, it's such an unforced error too when people don't do this.
Yeah. Like out of all the people that should be doing this, it should be you. But here we are, the studio, and we're doing this, and not a lot of other people are.
It's like chicken and egg, right? It's like, does the good sales process create the success, or does the success demand the good sales process?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, I don't know.
I would also say, if you are that person who is part-time and you have, certain windows of time, I would say they should be very consistent and you should build it into your week, no matter what. Like,
yeah.
If you're like, when I'm driving home, I'm going to get on a sales call with this client because I have a half an hour from work to home. Hey, my availabilities are 5 to 6 p.m. because that's when I'm going to be driving.
It doesn't take as much time always as people think.
Yeah. And just be organized enough to know when that is because, like, for me, without structure, I am extremely unorganized and very forgetful. Like, probably like most people, to be honest. But I'll drop the ball if I don't have this structure. If I know where I am actually required to be actively looking consistently, then I do really well. But it's very limited. It's a limited window that I need to be active and pay attention.
I wanted to ask you one more thing. Because, we didn't really fully lay it all out. And that's okay. Like everything we say to people, like we're not telling you what to say. That's not the point of this. We're trying to say we're just trying to outline like how much we're connecting with people and no one complains and everyone seems to be fine with it. So we're telling you like be diligent and all that. I think the other component with all these follow-ups is they have an actual point, right? Like what we're saying to them makes sense to the person, right? And so I guess I'll say it, but then there's a question. So a statement is, I do think it's very important to not be sending people pointless emails that you don't know why you're sending them. They don't have like real calls to action that make sense to the person. Like if you send an email like, hey man, just checking in.
Right.
That's annoying. Or you're just sending multiple emails. Like we typically, I think everything we send, the person understands why they're getting it and what the purpose of it is. And it's not annoying.
And it's like, you can really set yourself up to not be annoying by telling them, like when I'm on the phone with them, I'm like, hey, after 2 weeks, it's open to anyone. No more right of first refusal. So when you send them an email after 2 weeks saying, hey, just so you know, we're opening up the date, you're just doing exactly what you said you're going to do. You're not being annoying at that point. Or mean or pushy. You're just doing exactly what you said you were going to do. Yes. And people appreciate that. When you do exactly what you say you're going to do, to your point, exactly what you said, you're setting the expectation of what it's like going to be like to work with you. And for us, doing what we say we're going to do is a huge part of it. It's like our main tenet as a company. And what I think most wedding filmmakers would do. And we talk about it a lot on the podcast, like do what you say you're going to do. So that's all I'm doing is I'm just doing exactly what I said.
But also say what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like so many people are in sales and they have no leadership. Like when you are selling someone, you are leading them. Like it's like, it's the classic, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. Drinking, in this case, is buying the wedding film. So yes, you cannot force this person to buy your wedding film. If that is your goal with sales, bad goal. I do need to lead them to water. And if you are not the leader, if the client is the leader, I don't think you're a great salesperson. You are the leader. You're the one with the thing they want. Not you can't be thirsty.
Yeah.
You can't be like, oh, I really want this person's money. You have to be thinking, this person really wants my film.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Because a lot of times, I can probably tell you on one hand how many people I've spoken to over the course of a 14-year career who have been so type A that they've had to lead every aspect of the conversation. and what the process is going to look like. And it's like they're so domineering that it's like that's very rare for me. You know, sometimes you're just like, this person is not going to just listen to my sales pitch, you know. And then, you know, hey, this is just the way they're used to interacting. Like, again, I'm going to meet them where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to deal with it.
Most people do want to be led. And if you feel like a majority of your calls, they're dominating the terms of like, hey, why don't you do this for us? I want to say blah, 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 blah. Then maybe you have to reconsider your sales process a little bit, because clearly the client doesn't feel like they're being led very well. So I would agree with you there.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the people that you're working with are just trying to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't realize that you're the solution to their problem, you're going to come at it from the wrong angle. And I think, like, all that to say, the question being, what would you say to someone who is brand new? They don't know what they are looking for. They don't know how to talk to, like we know a lot, right? Like someone reaches out and we go, bum, 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 and we have a strong idea of all the things.
People really only ask 5 questions. Like that's the point that I'm at, is like, I direct them to water, and the water is 5 questions every single time. Like, I could probably list them off for you. But yeah, you're right. Most people aren't comfortable with sales because it's a wide open universe.
They think
questions.
It's a wide open universe.
Right.
They think like anything could happen on this call.
Right. I'm like,
they don't have
literally,
the
I could do
experience.
this while playing, Anno 1800.
You don't even need to listen. You don't even need to listen to the person.
No.
Like, in order to sell it.
And I don't, by the way, I don't play video games while I'm on sales calls, just to clarify.
Yes, totally.
Or I don't eat food as well, for, you know, one situation that we had years
at
ago.
the end of the day, like, so what would your advice to be to someone who is like getting into this and maybe they're a little more loosey-goosey? Like, how do they build this process out? What's the most important thing for them to consider when they're kind of deciding how they want to structure their sales funnel?
Right. I would say the first thing for a lot of people that are starting are like, they almost probably feel like it's not fair that they have to do it as a part of like making wedding films. And I would say the first step is just like, just deal with it. Suck it up. You know, it's going to be a part of the process if you want to be a wedding filmmaker. So do it or get out. So just kind of have that conversation with yourself. The second thing is just like, you have to figure out a way to tighten up your pitch. I would say write it out. I would say write out your sales pitch down to the minute. You know, what you want to be talking about. I know exactly what I'm going to be talking about at the 15-minute mark. Exactly my transition into packages. I go from talking about the wedding day into talking about packages, how I can help them understand what we actually sell. You know, I would say you should have your own kind of call script. And also, I would say probably just list out the 5 questions that you want people to be asking, and make them good questions. You know what question I don't get asked anymore, hardly ever, is what kind of camera gear do you have? Because that's what the Knot and Wedding Wire give people, like as a list of questions to ask your videographer. You know, and I think they still do it. I never get asked that questions because I am guiding people to the right questions. Because they soon realize like, oh, these aren't good questions that I should be asking. I don't even know what a Canon is or Fuji or Lumix or whatever it is. So I don't get asked those questions anymore. You want your client to be asking you the right questions. If you don't know what the right questions are, like, you need to do a little bit of soul searching on like what you're really trying to sell.
Well,
you know?
like why should they? I think the biggest thing I would tell someone is, first of all, expediency is very important. Diligency is very important. Those are the most important things. I would rather you do everything wrong except those 2 things.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather you send a bunch of emails that are kind of clunky, but just do it in the right timing.
Yep.
Because people will be a little bit understanding, or maybe they won't read certain things into certain things, but they can't respond to something you don't send.
Right.
So you got to do that. That's the first thing. Take the easy part out of the equation, which is being organized. So write down all the information, all the times you want to connect with someone and the increments, and have that planned out. I think the second part is a little more challenging, which is you have to be able to watch your films like an outsider. And like, I think the understanding your ideal client, one of the things, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I feel like it, is when people say your ideal client, what they usually mean is the person I want to work with. But I think a better way to look at it is my ideal client is the person who is best suited for my work. Right? Because that is something you can control. And when you make the film, you know, like, this is the film I'm making. This is who is interested in this film. This is what they want. This is what they value about a wedding film. If you don't know what you want people to ask about your films, because what you want them to ask is things that highlight the best qualities about working with you, the best things about your films, and the best things about the stuff that puts you against other people and makes you look favorable to people in your market. If you don't know what that stuff is, you're going to have a hard time really driving home the point. The more clarity you get on that, and this will just happen naturally as your career develops, the more clarity you get on who you are, the better your sales will go.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, again, we talked about it a million times, empathy. Like, I know, and I didn't come from the world that most of our clientele came from, right? Like, the clientele that we're working with, like, I guess the right way to describe them is they came from a world that was much more privileged than the world I grew up in. I grew up in probably like a lower middle class, household. People that we're working with are either upper middle class or, top 1% earners in the US. So it's a different world that I grew up in. I'm speaking their language. I didn't always speak their language. Now I know how to speak their language. I know what they dress. I know what they like to wear, what they like to eat, the way they interact with each other, the way their family dynamics work. Like, you kind of have to become one of them in a way. And, I think whether you're working in country club weddings or whether you're working in, venue spaces, if you're working in ballrooms, like, know who your clients are. And that might change over time, but whoever your clients are changing to be, you need to learn how to become a chameleon and at least speak the language, right?
Yes.
Like, learn the language over time. That's why I won't shoot people down if they're like, hey, I'm having a beer with my couple at a wedding, because that's just who the couple wants to have at their wedding, is someone who's willing to sit down and take a shot with them at the end of the night. Like, hey, if that's you.
And like, the good thing is
go for it.
You can customize that.
It wouldn't work in my world. Like, working luxury weddings, I wouldn't get booked again if a planner saw me taking a shot, at a wedding or drinking a beer. It's just like, it'd be seen as very unprofessional. But it's not in every world. So it's like, find your people, know the world that they live in, and that's part of the process.
That's great.
Yeah.
So hopefully you got something out of that. If you didn't, then it's Jared's fault. If you did, then I contributed. And, I'm happy with either because it's not on me. So, but at the end of the day, like, when it comes to sales, I think, like, the best advice I could give you, besides all the tips about selling, is don't let yourself hate it. Like, try to love it. Try to learn to love it, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. And so, yeah, like, all the tips, that's great. Try to find a way to make it fun, or at least not hell, because as you do that, like, you're more likely to do things that aren't hellish for you. And I do feel like, if you like it and you're listening to this, and you're like, I love sales, go with that, man. Like, even if you think you're not the best wedding filmmaker, if you love sales, you're probably more likely to do well in the industry than if you're a great wedding filmmaker who refuses and hates sales.
Right. I mean, we said this when we first started. We saw people in the industry who would look at their work and we're like, they're not very good. Like, they're fine, serviceable, but the amount of Instagram followers they have, what they're charging is like much more than this other person who's super skilled, artistic. Like, you can tell they have their stuff together. Why is that? we quickly realized, because they were great salespeople and were just personalities. So it's like you work in an industry where skill is very important, clearly. Sales trumps everything. So, like Jay said, guys, hopefully this episode has been great for you. Thank you for hanging out with us again here on the Wedding Film School Show. Make sure you're checking out our Facebook group. That's a way that you can interact with the community, ask questions, sell your gear. There's a buy and sell tab at the top of the page. Also, we have 2 different YouTube channels, The Wedding Film School Show and Wedding Film School. Wedding Film School is where we do our weekly live wedding film critiques. If you want to submit your film, make sure you're visiting weddingfilm.school, and you can submit a film for free, by the way, and Jason and Bobby will take a look and potentially review it. Also, make sure you're checking out the Wedding Film School Show on YouTube. That's where you can see our lovely faces, as well as listen to every single episode of the Wedding Film School Show. And you can also listen to the Wedding Film School Show anywhere that you can find podcasts. Anything else you want to add before we log off, Jay?
No. You should sell weddings.
Good advice. We'll see you next time on the Wedding Film School Show.